morgon och hjärtligt välkomna. Och jag hälsar alla välkomna till Kungliga Skog- och Lantbruksakademin. En spännande dag när vi ska prata om framtidens teknik inom jord och skog. And a very special welcome to our guests, to the Royal Academy of Agriculture and Forestry, to our workshop here today. And special welcome to Imke Borchardt, a project manager from Landwirtschaftskammer in Schleswig-Holstein, and Klaus Herbert Rolf, sales and governmental affairs manager from 365 Farmland. I will also say welcome to our lecturers today from Sweden. Magnus Karlberg, professor from Luleå Technical University, and also from the person who will tell us the real word as a farmer, Peter Borring, chairman for the Farmers Union in Östergötland. I also want to present myself a little bit. I will be the moderator for today, and my name is Imke Borchardt, and I work at AgroVest as a project manager. AgroVest is a non-profit organization who developing farming companies in different kinds, and I'm the project manager for Smart Agri, and we help companies develop digital solutions and services for farming. So we don't help farmers, but we help companies to help farmers. I also have been a CEO for several food companies in Sweden, especially dairy and meat, and I'm also actually a farmer, but not a real farmer. I'm not only a moonshine farmer, so called, as we say it in Sweden. I have a stud farm with 100 horses and a breed, scimitar breed herd, and some sheep as well. So a little bit in farming as well. Okej. Och jag går över lite svenska. Och idag kommer vi huvudsakligen då prata engelska, eller möjligtvis snarare svengelska. För att det är tillåtet att göra om lite svenska ord till engelska om vi tappar ett ord, så att säga. Det är något vi inte skämmas för. Det kommer ni göra allihopa här idag, tror jag. Men under föredragen så är det engelska. Frågeställningarna får vara på svengelska om de vill. Och sen har vi workshopen och då är det svenska, om inte våra gäster då är med. För då får vi ju till spart, ja. Och sen discussion efteråt då, det är ju engelska såklart. I would like to translate to our foreign guests as well. We will have English as a language today at the presentations, and then we have the workshop. It's mostly Swedish, and then the discussion is English as well. But when you turn into the discussion groups in the workshop, we speak English. But we need some time to use Swinglish. That's a special language. When you don't find a Swedish word for it, you try to make it English. So you have to accept that. Okay. And with these words, so we talk English or Swinglish from now. And I have some information to give before that. We will have Jordbruksaktuellt, one of the magazines in Sweden who working with give us news about agriculture and forestry. They're filming and will send out in different medias what we are doing today. So look that you have your hair in the right order and everything. And it will be Stefan Ljungdahl and Carolina Wahlberg who works with that. And then the most important thing for most of us, it's food and talk. So we have lunch, 12:30, 40 something, and then we should be back after approximately 40-45 minutes. I will tell you the exact time later. And then we have another important message. We didn't announce that after the discussion today, we will have a coffee, a typical Swedish afternoon coffee break downstairs as well. So if you don't have to rush to a train or an airplane or anything, take your time and go down and mingle with the people who have time to stay. Okay, and the lectures today will be about 35 minutes, and then we have about 7 to 10 minutes questions. And the things that the audience have to take care of today is to listen carefully, think about questions, don't ask questions during the presentation, and don't fall asleep. Okay, good. And with all that said, I would like to introduce our first speaker today, and it will be Imke Borchardt. Welcome, and we'll give her a warm applause. You see her like this. Yeah. Welcome, Imke.
Thank you.
Could you tell us something about Imke Borchardt? What are you doing? Who are you?
Well, I'm mid of 40 and I studied agriculture, originally with the aim to take over my parents' dairy farm, but at the end of the university I decided to do something different. And since then I'm in plant production. I was working 10 years for a breeder company in north of Germany, which is specialized in rapeseed, and another 10 years for the Landwirtschaftskammer Schleswig-Holstein.
Thanks a lot. The scene is yours. Take your time.
Thanks for the invitation and good morning to everyone. My theme is precision farming. The question is precision farming an infant? I was working the last 9 years in a on-farm research project and took over the project management 4 years ago. And I would like to show you our project and results of it. And the Landwirtschaftskammer doesn't have big farms, or doesn't own big farms, so it was necessary to have a partner farm for the project, and our partner farm was Gut Helmsdorf. The owner is Magnus von Buchwald, and the farm manager is Carsten Koch, who was our partner. The site is located close to the Baltic Sea in the eastern hilly landscape, so it's quite hilly and you have differences in the soil. The annual rainfall is about 750 millimeters. The temperature is about 8.3 degrees per year, average. And the height above sea level is 10 to 75 meters. Soil type is mainly loamy sand. The farm business is about 1,000 hectare cropland farming. And the average yields in the 10-year period of winter oilseed rapeseed is 4.1 tons a hectare, and you see the range behind that. And winter wheat is the average 9.4 tons a hectare, and winter barley is the average is 10 tons a hectare. Our project is a long-term project. It started in 2008 and finished in 2017 with the trials in the field. The trial area was about 300 hectares, and everything was about site-specific application. One part we were working on was a site-specific fertilization with phosphate, potassium, magnesium, and lime. And we also spent time with site-specific sowing, site-specific N fertilization, which was the biggest part because it's most important to our farmers. We tried to do something with site-specific soil cultivation, but we didn't integrate the systems in our trials because they weren't stable. They didn't run stable. And we also wanted to do something with site-specific plant production, but at the beginning the farm doesn't have the technique, and later on we had to do enough with everything else above. We tested everything in winter oilseed rape, winter wheat, and winter barley. These are the main crops in the north of Germany or in Germany at all. On the right side you can see 80% of the farm fields. Every named field is a project field, and the colors show different crops. Our fields rotated in the farm rotation concerning the crops. And we had mainly two big questions. There was soil cultivation, which has got this short DD next to the name, and DG is N fertilization. Our targets were testing available new intelligent technique in the field, respectively on a crop farm, evaluating yields, environmental value, which means N balance and phosphate balance, quality, which means protein and winter wheat, functionality and profitability of the systems. We had spent 180,000 euros in total for site-specific application plus disposal of machinery. The project was planned with 1 million and we ended up with 2 million. Because everything at the beginning seems to be easy, but then practice came. We are 6 persons in the project team. There are 3 of the farm and 3 from the Landwirtschaftskammer Schleswig-Holstein. My colleague Christoph Lubkowitz is a technician. He was guiding the trials outside and did the data management, and my colleague Beate Schäfer did the economy of the economical calculations. We were financed by the Landwirtschaftskammer and partly by Stiftung Schleswig-Holsteinische Landschaft und Landwirtschaftliche Rentenbank, and got some further support. This is a map of a trial paddock. You see the 38, EM38, the electric conductivity map, and it shows, or it's a parameter to show differences in the paddock, in the field. So it doesn't look homogeneous, it's heterogeneous. And this is a reason for precision farming. We put our trials in the eastern hilly landscape because it's known to be most heterogeneous in our part of Germany. And so we thought the effects of site-specific farming might be the biggest one in that part of Schleswig-Holstein. This is how our trials look like. They are big plot trials. And as you could see, that's for N fertilization. We have 3 different applications. The red one is farm practice. The green one is one-time fertilization changed to twice fertilization later on in winter grain, and the N sensor system from Yara at the beginning. Each part has always the same application because we want to get to know something about long-term influence of management. We documented everything from soil working to last spraying and N balance as well as yields. For economical calculations, we did use the yields from the weighing bridge because the yield maps are not good enough for that. So I will start with a site-specific application of phosphate and so on. We decided to do this in a systematic 1 hectare grid. The soil sampling, the blue lines divide the paddock into the 1 hectare grid, and the red cycles are the line where you take the soil cores on. At the beginning, our standard in Germany is we need for recommendations concerning potassium, magnesium and lime, the soil type, and standard in Germany is finger testing. You are just rubbing the soil sample, and we were very astonished because we have 321 1 hectare grid cells and everything was the same. We went to a region where it should be heterogeneous, but the testing didn't show that. It wasn't plausible because we saw differences in the field, and so we switched in 2012, mid-time of the project, to a wet analysis. So we analyzed on sand, clay and silt. And we have the possibility to take different grain sizes to get to know which sort of soil we have. That's wet analysis just based on clay content, and you can see it's getting more lighter. You have more lighter soil types and you have differences. If you take the clay and silt content, it differs from above a bit. and that's another one, but not interesting. I will show you what's going on with it on just one site cell. It's semi-loam, lightly loamy-sand, and loamy-sand, and it has a difference on potassium supply grade. There's everywhere the same figure underneath of milligram K2O, and you can see in the first map it's the supply grade of B, which is not optimal, it's too low. It changes because of the soil type in D, which is too much, so you can save money. C is optimum, you just have to maintain the content, and it's the same there. It was astonishing, because these are all certified methods and you get different results, and we are talking about precision farming. I calculated for a paddock of a size of 20 hectares with 21 sites and a 3-year crop rotation, the nutrient demand and the nutrient cost, just on basis of finger testing and clay and silt wet analysis. And the differences are in potassium, magnesium and lime, and we ended up with 3,300 euros less fertilizer costs when we do our soil determination on basis of wet analysis. Compared to, it's not often to have, not many farms do have wet analysis because it's a very expensive method. But we found out on our location it's better to have it because you spend less than 3,000 euros for nutrients, and you have to invest just 735 euros for the analysis, and you can use them. This results 30 years of the wet analysis. So there's a gain for the farmer about 2,500 euros for a 20 hectare paddock in a 3 years crop rotation, just because of the soil determination method. This is just for example after spreading, or how did the contents of potassium look like over the whole period. That is the variation at the beginning in 2008. And we started with harvest 2010 to do site-specific fertilization in potassium as well as phosphate. Had different reasons, but however, 3 years later, or 5 years later then, we see there's still a variation, but it mainly drops down. The question was why. And at the end, we have still a variation, but it's higher. We had the drop in 2012, soil analysis 2012, because of high rainfall and harvest and sowing 2010 and 11. So our soil depth, sampling depth of 30 centimeters, and the potassium is below that. And maybe some higher yield removal has been. And we have some expectations, like the paddock here. It doesn't do the same like the other paddocks did, and we don't know why, because we did the same on it, but different reaction. And we had, the whole time we had the same laboratory, so that we don't have questions because of different laboratories. For us, it's important to know the soil nutrient content category. The green one is C, it's the optimum, and you just maintain. A and B, you have to put extra fertilizer on the land, and D and E is where you can save fertilizer. And as you can see, it's for phosphate, kalium, potassium, magnesium, and lime, pH. there's nothing where you have 100% of C, and this was originally the aim. Phosphate ended up with 41 in C, potassium in 63. Magnesium, we didn't spread magnesium. There had been different problems, and we don't have a single magnesium fertilizer. And pH, there were high pH levels at the beginning, and we just didn't spread anything in the first half of the project and started afterwards to maintain something. And it has got the highest homogeneity in C with 72%. One question was, because of our experiences concerning the nutrients costs, what is more important, the soil determination method or the site-specific application for costs? Because you get a homogeneous level of the nutrients in the field. And this shows for 2012 the comparison between farm practice, which is field average, with finger testing. And it's the fifth one from above. And the first one is the site-specific with clay and silt wet analysis. And you can save 27,000 euros between those methods. It's cheaper to spread your fertilizer with site-specific wet analysis compared to field average and field test, finger testing. But if you have the same level of soil determination, like clay and silt, you end up just with 5,000 euros. And the same for 2017 at the end. Farm practice to site-specific is 31,000 euros compared to 2,800, 2,900 euros, but you spend less money with field average, not with site-specific. Nutrients are one part for the economy of fertilization. Another one is soil sampling and application map. And I just would like to show you our figures, which was 25 euros a hectare for field registration, sampling, nutrient analyzing, including finger testing and images for soil nutrient supply. And another part are the cost for wet analysis. It's pro rata. Everything is calculated for a 3-year rotation. And you need another 12 euros for application maps. And we do just have application maps for phosphate, potassium and lime. Because you don't have a single nutrient fertilizer in magnesium, and you can take a fertilizer which contains 25% magnesium and 20% sulfur, but you don't, maybe you meet the magnesium amount you need, but you don't meet the demand of sulfur, and you can get problems in yield with it, or extra cost you don't need. So each soil sample costs €40.50. Per crop rotation it's nearly 13,000 euros, and it's 30 years calculation you have 130,000 euros you have to pay for that. It's for the whole 320 hectares. So now we compare site-specific sampling costs and map costs, application map costs compared to uniform spreading on field average. The sampling cost for site-specific is in a 1 hectare grid. It's 40 euros per sample. Compared to that, the field-specific is 28.5 because you don't need the application maps. You have different sample numbers because the site-specific is in a 1 hectare one, and the field-specific is on a 3 hectare grid. If you multiply the sample costs by the numbers, you end up with 13,000 in total per rotation for site specific, and field specific is just 3,000. If you calculate this for 30 years and calculate a difference, there are about 100,000 euros difference for sampling and application maps. This is 10 euros per year in hectare. And if you do this in a 6-year rotation, because in Germany we have to do it at least sampling every 6 years, it's 6 euros surplus per hectare and year compared to a 3-year with 10 euros. So it's quite a bit of money. We did the fertilization of phosphate and so on with the redrag, and we tried to find out where to put the amount of a certain fertilizer and where it really ends up. And we tried to find it out with for the redrag. And as you can see, the blue line is the set point, the green one is the speed, and normally if you have a reply, there should be a difference between blue and red, but it's the same. So we know we don't have a real reply. It just works like a mirror. It gives us the figure back we gave into the system. But we know from practice, this is a target application map, that we have delays. Every color means a different application amount, and we know that there are 3 to 10 seconds delay in practice, and this is a calculation because the machine doesn't reply properly, and it's without overlap. It doesn't look like you want the target map. It's calculated for 10 seconds. The other point is that one was the lengthwise spreading, and this is a traversal spreading with a consistent amount, what we did the last couple of years or before the project. You always try to applicate 100%. We are working with spin spreaders there, and they do have triangle in the amount. They have double spreading width of their working widths, and because of the additional amounts, you get everywhere the same. But in site-specific amount, you have differences between the different trend lines, and so the system I showed before doesn't function properly. It's maybe you have 50% in the first lane and 100% in the second. Normally it should be that way, and the aim is here, and the aim is for the third lane to have nothing, but it doesn't work. And it's the same if you have a double disc spreader for nitrogen or something like that. So you can't really get the amount there where you want it. Soil, we're working with the Redrag, like we call it, A600S. Normally it looks like that in the Eastern Halley landscape because of cloudy soils on the top of the hills. And as you can see, they tried to crisscross soiling to make sure that there's enough plant density, but it didn't work. And I have to say, it's not a Helmstorf, it hasn't been Helmstorf, they always did it better like that. For site-specific soiling, at the beginning, we discussed to use EM38 maps. It's the spot data we have in a 24-meter distance, because of in the first years we had a 24-meter working width, which changed to 36 meters in 2013, harvest year 2013. We interpolate this data and get that map. And it's the darker the color, the heavier the soil in most cases. And out of that we developed this sowing map. This is the original one. And the higher the soil, the higher the heavier the soil, the higher the sowing rate. But farmers have to corrupt them. The system doesn't make a difference if wetness comes from a heavy soil or from a sink. Maybe you have more humus. And so you have, this is a sink with humus. You have to take them out because you can't put extra seeds in such places. You will get rotting because of too high plant densities. So we're working with corrected soil maps. This is set point and real reply, and it looks good for us, of the Peterstadt Rapid. This shows the area percentage of different sowing grades on the different paddocks. We have a usual sowing rate, which is related to the sowing date and the soil conditions, and then increased. So usual is 100%, increased is now 130, and highest sowing rate is 107%. These are the additional seed costs because of the differences in the sowing grades. And compared to consistent sowing grades, it's always more expensive. Conclusion concerning the site-specific sowing, it was based on an application of EM38, and this is successfully established. The farm took it over just in the second year and still has it. The scheme we had for site-specific sowing led to higher seed costs, but we increased uniformity of crop density with that. At the beginning, we started with a Jara N sensor concerning the site-specific N fertilization, and we had about 10,000 euros annual sensor costs. On annual base area of like Hemsdorf is 1,000 hectare, you end up with 10 euros per hectare base area a year. And if you want to get the black zero concerning the money input, and you have to save nitrogen on what we call CAS. It contains 27% nitrogen, and it costs about 0.8 euros per kg nitrogen. You have to save 13 kgs of nitrogen, or if you have urea, you have to save 19 kgs of nitrogen. On the other hand, you could get the breaks even through yield increase. Winter oilseed rape is the first one, it's 0.3 decitons per hectare. Winter barley is the second with 0.7, and winter wheat is the third, 0.6. And if you have a farm size of 100, it's just 10 times of the figures you had before. And the question is if Technic can really perform that. We tested the Jara N sensor from 2008 to 2012. It's just an online system. We use it as online system as recommended from Jara Agricom, who's the main trader in Germany. We used, or we varied in winter wheat and barley N2 and N3, and did it in winter oilseed rape in N1 and N2. I just want to explain what farm practice is. you have lower densities here. It's a biomass map, and I don't know if you can see it. The driver put extra nitrogen amount onto these parts. So farm practice is not the consistent amount over the whole paddock. The driver reacts on differences of the crop. If the crop is big, he reduces because he's also the man on the combine harvester and he don't want logic. And if the crop is small, he puts a surplus on it. One-time application, we did it in rapeseed and grain in the first 2 years, but then switched it to a two-time application in winter wheat and winter barley because it's more safe concerning quality and yield and the end sensor. Profitability of the fertilization systems, farm practice versus one-time twice application versus Yara N-sensor online. This is the gross margin for farm practice with 795 compared to one-time or twice application with 738 compared to Yara N-sensor with 748. It is a calculation over all years and all crops, and it was the same in every crop. Yara wasn't better than farm practice. Besides the economy, the nitrogen balance is important for us, and it's the same farm practice to one-time twice fertilization and Yara N-sensor online. We have everywhere nearly the same amount of nitrogen surplus, so there's no big difference for me, no important difference. Conclusion concerning the Yara N-sensor online. Site-specific nitrogen application online showed at the tested conditions no benefit concerning the profitability compared to farm practice so far. The sensor system didn't have any advantage concerning the average nitrogen balance. That was the reason why we switched the sensor system to Isaria. It was developed by the Technical University in Munich, and the main trader, the main seller is Fritz Meyer. We tested it from 2013 to 2015. And there's a difference compared to the Yara system. It's online plus map overlay. They say it's not just important to know the actual crop underneath your sensor head, you also have to have the information over the historical yield potential of the different parts of your field. Underneath the picture, you see the different yield potential maps we were working with. We didn't want it, but it was that way. Relative yield potential map in our project means relative yield potential per site. You have a real figure, several years of yield maps and satellite images, which go into the calculation, whole field, including headlands calculation and a 36-meter grid. It's just the two different sources, satellite and yield maps, and they end up in a yield potential map. And we were wondering concerning spreading. The dots are from the receiver and give the information what yield potential you have. And the system puts more nitrogen on the higher yielding parts and less nitrogen on the lower yielding parts. And we are spraying with 36 meters, 18 meters in each direction, so it doesn't fit here, but you get a problem there. You have the red information, it fits with 50% of the spreader working with, but not with that part. And here you spread average, but you have high potential on the right side, and yeah. Nature is not adjusted to trend lines and to technology. Our problem was, at first, we should work with classes, but we didn't know what percentage each class had to the average, and so we wanted the the map calculator to give us figures concerning each class. Here you can see the percentage of yield expectation, and we calculated this for stubble wheat with 9 tons. And at the end, we ended up with, that's an important figure, 28 kgs difference between one class to another. The center producer didn't want to give us a hint how big the difference should be between classes, but when they saw our figures, they said, no, 28 kgs is too high. And depends on the soil and so on. We had maps with 54 kgs difference. This was the reason why we dropped the classes and got to values per 36 meter grid, which is adjusted to the trend line. Because we don't want to make a system worse, we try to get every potential we can get to get the best out of the system and maybe some improvement in practice. Because of time, I wouldn't explain everything. This is a target application map. It's the system for nitrogen as well as for potassium as well. The trend line you can see is the dots, and the application map shows different amounts, and it's the same I've showed before. If you don't have adjusted application maps, you don't get what you want. This is a target, and this is what the system makes out of it. Yield stability is very important for the Isaria system. You have to know the low and the high stable yielding areas, because there you can calculate a real good amount of nitrogen. Everything else is not possible. At the beginning, nobody defined what stability is. It was the sensor producer just told us we have to have stable maps, yield potential maps. So we did our own calculations. We compared the map of 2015 with the map of 2014. The only difference between two maps was that in 15 are yield maps from 14 and satellite images from 14. And we were astonished that we ended up with less average yield potential, 19%, which means 40 kgs per hectare N reference value decrease. And it wasn't, we couldn't imagine what the reason was because of these differences between these 2 years. The difference was that they used a different calculation method. There's no standard. Another company can calculate it on another way, can take different sources. So that's another point to try to find out something about yield stability. And there's no definition, so we defined it ourselves. Everybody can make it as he wants. We said, well, high yielding is above 110%, normal yielding is between 110 and 90, and low yielding is below 90. And then, well, we said if you have a minimum maximum difference between the years of 30% or more, it's weak. The stability is weak. Between 20 and 30 is less weak. But this is also not defined what's stable and what's not stable. And between 10 and 20%, maybe it's stable or weak, we don't know. It's our own definition. And between 0 and 10%, it's stable. You can see the percentages per square. And as you can see, there's not much stable. High yielding 12%, normal yielding 17%, low yielding 2%. Less than 50% are stable. We used yield maps from the class harvester. And 10 percent points maximum minimum difference is N 20 kgs of N difference. Another thing we found out with the system of Isaria is that they end up with high N amounts at N2 in winter wheat, where we have an absolute system. We did lots of testings to make sure that we do the best for the sensor system to get the most benefits for the practice. And there we have the gross stage, we have been in the gross stage 31, and next was 37. The system recommended in the wheat 99 kgs of nitrogen per hectare. We normally spread 60 to 70. And if you do the next spreading at gross stage 47, you end up with 140 kgs. Profitability of the systems. Farm practice, one time, twice application. We did that time with map underneath because we have yield potential maps anyway and try to improve the system as well. And the Isaria system, online closed map overlay, 850 to 849 to 842. Nitrogen balance, it's nearly the same everywhere. Discussions we had is there are different sources for yield potential maps. Nobody knows which one should be taken. So we think we need a standard for yield potential maps, or at the moment they are discussing models for growth and so on, instead of different maps. Conclusion concerning the Isaria system is there's no standard for yield potential maps, source as well as calculation method. High and low yielding as well as yield stability are not defined on a value basis, although they are surely important for the system success. Combination of yield potential and yield stability are necessary for a certain forecast of end demand. The absolute module of winter wheat generates relatively high N amounts on N2 compared to farm practice. Missing not provided N graduation within the relative modules, which is oilseed rape and barley. And under the tested conditions, we didn't find an advantage concerning the N balance and the economy compared to farm practice so far. Isaria told us that they will improve the N balance, but they want to spend the same total amount of nitrogen, but they will have a better reallocation of nitrogen within the field. And if you want to improve your N balance up to 30 kgs per hectare, you need a yield increase in winter oilseed rape of 9 decitons a hectare, winter wheat 16 and winter barley 18. But you have to be sure that you have the same quality so that you get the same price for your product. The pneumatic spreader was in all nitrogen trials was exact spreader, a pneumatic spreader, first time 24 meters, second 36 meters. And we did find out that the system do have delays between set target and real reply. It's about 3 seconds plus an extra of 1 to 2 seconds for the transport through the tubes. This is a pneumatic spreader. The pneumatic spreader delays 4 of his 6 sections to synchronize the fertilizer over the whole 36 meters. So these are the 1 to 2 seconds for the extra time through the tubes. So it takes 5 seconds until you get the amount you want somehow. But you get every second. That's the last foil, the nitrogen fertilization sensor and spreader. You see the working width of the spreader, the red bar. The sensor looks left and right of the trend line. The crops are more or less the same on both sides. So these are represented for the spreader. And there it starts that the crop looks maybe the same on each side, but it doesn't fit with the spreader working width. You have a big crop close to a small crop and get an average biomass because both sensor heads are get to an average recommendation of nitrogen, and you spread it over the whole working width and so on. We know that we have every 20 to 40 meter change in soil type. So yeah, it's a problem for the technique. We would like to have a spreader which can spread different amounts between both sites, but it's not available at the moment. The goal was the right product shall be placed at the right place in the at the right time, in the right dose, and in the right place. And the conclusion is simple, imaginary, difficult, hardly insufficient to achieve. Helmstoff is different. Farmer need a set actual comparison of the right amount at the right place to get an idea what his technique is able to do. Thanks for attention.
Thanks a lot. Very interesting, and we're a little bit short of time, but we can have some questions, I think, to Imke about this interesting matter. To me, it shows that precision farming is we haven't the conclusion yet how to do it. Is there any questions?
I would like to say concerning the 1 hectare grid for fertilization of phosphate and so on. There are regions in Germany where you can have a bigger grid, maybe 3 to 5 hectares. We just have experience with our 1 hectare grid.
Okay. Yes, Mats?
Do you have any estimation about how much better your result would be if you could have the fertilization divided at least in 2?
We didn't do any calculations. You have to have real figures, and we don't have them.
If I understand you right, when you put on too much fertilizer, you see that as spoiled. But I don't think it's spoiled to 100%. You have a certain effect next year of that.
We don't know it.
Say again?
We don't know if we, do you mean nitrogen or potassium or whatever?
Both really. Do you see that as 100% spoiled, or do you have another 20% or 40 or 50 next year for use?
No, I think so. I don't think so. I don't know it for phosphate and so on, but I don't think we do have this nitrogen because of leaching.
Okay, Per, talk high.
Clarification.
Please use the microphone and press the button.
For clarification, when you did the nitrogen variation testing, on that field, the drilling was even?
No. Every paddock is drilled site-specific, and it has got the question was if this would have an influence on the result of the sensor. I don't think so, because where you have a low crop or a small crop, even if you put on some more nitrogen, you will end up with the same amount of yield compared to a crop who is established well or better.
Okay, I think we need to make an end to this interesting discussion here, and I think we'd like to give. I would like to give you a tractor. It's not up-to-date tractor, but it's still a tractor.
Thank you.
And
for that.
thank you for the interesting moment. And we have I think Imke has some more explanation about potassium, I think it was. Could you tell us, Imke?
Keep the button pressed.
Yeah, I did. I think it's. I will do it that way. Sorry, I think I didn't make it clear that cadmium is a special nutrient. We had the drop in the middle of the project because of high rainfalls years before. We didn't see this in phosphate. We started with a low level, and can you hear me?
The phosphate was different. We started at a low level and increased the level over the years, but we didn't get it that there are no differences between the sites. And magnesium we didn't spread. It looked like all years the same really. And lime was just a decrease of pH because we didn't spread for a couple of years because of the high pH level on the farm, which is related to a certain organic fertilizer.
Thanks.